Hi there, Janet Fritz here for Galaxy Girl Creations. Welcome to my channel and welcome to another process video for Off the Board, which I'm using a Pinterest pin as my inspiration. This is the pin. It inspired me to pull out a bunch of stamps and create a bunch of flowers. This is also a mixed media Mayhem layout, which we were required to do stitching, stamping, and some sort of texture. And then I'm playing along with the Iron Crafter Challenge put on by Peace Craft Love. It is a monthly hop where you are challenged to use something in your stash. This month we are challenged to use buttons, brads, or eyelets, and I chose buttons. I'm going to use this Studio Light stamp set that I've had in my stash for quite some time and never used. So yeah, when I saw that pin, I was like, oh my gosh, I really should use that stamp set that's been in my stash, and I've not done anything with it, and I had all these grandiose ideas of what I was going to do with it, and so here I am finally doing it. So I'm taking the stamps, I'm using some archival ink from Ranger, and I'm stamping them onto some sticky backed post-it notes. These are like the full sticky back. It's only got like a 1/4 of an inch edge that's not sticky. And I'm going to use those as a mask so I can layer these stamps up and make it look like some are behind the others. I've just quickly marked off my photo where it's going to sit so I can place the stamps exactly where I want them. And I don't get a great impression this first stamp. And that is partly my fault. I didn't really ink it up great. But I have a remedy for that towards the end, so you'll see that coming up. I'm going to just go ahead and keep stamping my other stamps. As you can see, I put the masking down so that when I stamp these other cup-like flowers over the top, it doesn't really mess up the original first stamp that I've done. So I'm just kind of playing around with where I want these. I want a little bit of movement in this layout. I don't want everything on the same level. So some are going to be up a little higher than others, and some are going to be down a little bit lower than others. I haven't really taken any consideration for what I'm doing with the stems. I probably should have done that because I don't want any stems going through my flowers either, but I think the only one that it really goes through is the one that looks like a little starburst there, and that's going to be okay because those kind of flowers, you can see through them anyway. They're very wispy, so I think it's going to be okay. And also I am going to hand draw a couple of the stems because they've given me 4 options in this stamp set, but I really wanted another one just to add my own little design to it. So I'm just kind of stamping it down here. I don't know why I bothered even putting that paper down at the bottom to kind of mask off where my line is, because there's going to be patterned paper down there and I already know that. So I could have just stamped it no problem without masking off that bottom area. But for some reason I did, and that's what I would do if I wasn't going to put patterned paper down at the bottom. And that way it would not look like a big old hot mess at the bottom. So you could also run these off of your page. That wasn't what I was going for, but you could definitely do that and it would look great. And now I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Not exactly the same stamps or the same heights, but I am doing the same technique. And I really like this technique. I don't know if this stamp set is available anymore, but if it is, I will put a link down below for it. They, again, are Studio Light stamps. And I just think they're super pretty, and you're going to see the back of the packaging in a bit, because I am going to watercolor these, and that is the reason that I'm using the Ranger archival ink, because I don't want the ink to run when I apply my watercolor. So I couldn't use something like a distress ink, because that's water-based, and then the black would definitely run. So permanent ink is the way to go for this particular technique. There are a lot of these little smaller circles which are designed to fit inside the larger stamps, so I'm kind of playing with those and mixing and matching where I want them, and I'm liking how that's looking so far. I also do want to duplicate some from each side so that there's a repetition, but I want some new ones on either side also, so it's a nice good mix. And I really liked that largest one the most, so that was the one I decided to stamp down first, so I made sure that I got it on the page, and it's kind of in a primo position maybe, and I'm really happy with the way that it turns out. So now I'm going to go ahead and do my stems. I'm happy with the way those come out. I think they're super cute and very whimsical. The photo that I have is my niece's second daughter. She's the middle child. She's in one of those push cars, and she's got the biggest smile on her face. I wish I could show that to you, but for privacy purposes, I've covered her face. And I don't know, she's just adorable, and she kind of has a twinkle in her eye, and I felt like it would be a great photo for this very whimsical type of a layout. I think this is her, I want to say it's her 10-month photo, but I could be wrong on that. I will end up writing that on the journaling. It's not going to be part of the title, but I will make sure it's included in the journaling. So I'm just taking a fine-tipped Sharpie marker, which is an alcohol-based marker, so it's not going to run when I add water, but I'm going over those stamped lines, and these stamps are easy to do that with because the lines are pretty bold and easy to see. Some of the really super fine lined stamps are hard to do that with, so and it's kind of one of those things you do at your own risk, but I figured I'm watercoloring over it. It's kind of sketchy and whimsical. If I don't get it exactly how I want it or how the stamp was, it's going to be okay. Now I pulled out my watercolors from Gonzai Tambai. I don't know. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Just mixing up some of those watercolors and coloring in the different flowers so that they match the photograph, which has a lot of pink and purple in it. And then she's got reddish hair, so there's a bit of that kind of an orange feel to it, and she's got big blue eyes. So just pulling in all the colors. I really do want this to be more colorful than the photograph, but I want to make sure that I take the opportunity to highlight the colors that are in the photograph as well. So here we go with some yellow, just adding in some bright sunshiny kind of a feel to it, and I want it to be just have that really big happy feel to it, and I think it's going to achieve that effect by choosing the bright bold colors and things that just remind you of sunshine and happiness, I guess. I am pulling in some purples because she's got purple in the car there, and a couple of different shades of purple, lightening up some of that with more saturation of water than pigment. And then I am just going over the stems with varying colors and shades of green, not going really dark, just keeping it really light. I'm going for a fun, whimsical kind of look with the whole thing. Now my water is a bit dirty. Haven't pulled out. I have a what I call the cat bowl. It's really not called a cat bowl. It's really not a cat bowl. It is called a rinse well. And that's what I really like to use when I'm doing a lot of watercoloring. I haven't pulled that out on my new desk yet, but it is something that I now have a little bit more space for, so I might be using that more than just this little green Fiskars collapsible, I think it's Fiskars. No, not Fiskars. Oh my goodness. Faber-Castell collapsible cup. And I've had this cup for ages. It just sits on my desk, and I just rinse it out and reuse it all the time. It is collapsible, like I said, so you can travel with it. But another easy way to take a collapsible bowl with you is to get one of those collapsible water bowls for a cat or dog, because that goes even flatter than this little bowl that I've got going here. My water is getting a little bit on the dirty side, but I'm just about done here, so I'm not going to go and rinse it out. I'm just going to keep going. And I did end up with a couple of water droplets on my background there. I'm not worried about it. It's going to dry, and there's not really any pigment in there, so I'm just going to keep going and roll with it and be happy about it. It's not a big deal. I am working on Close to My Heart daisy paper. I know Close to My Heart just went out of business. I don't know if Stampin' Up. Stampin' Up is, I guess, taking over part of their stuff. I'm not really sure exactly what's going on. I'm not a consultant for either one, but I do love close to my heart daisy paper, and I've got a lot of it in my stash because I've purchased a whole bunch when I heard they were going to go out of business. And it takes the water very well. I've used it for mixed media for quite some time. If I'm really getting heavy-handed with water, I will go to a mixed media paper or a watercolor paper. And I think those work great when you're doing like full-on spray and stuff like that, because you're really getting a heavy saturation. But for something like this, it works. The Close to My Heart paper is working just fine. I haven't had great luck with all cardstock, I will say that, but this one seems to work well. This paper is from Reminisce, I believe, and I don't know, it's really colorful. I thought it matched really well, so I'm going for it. It is super bright, super bold, lots of pattern going on here, but I really like it, and I think in small doses like this, it works great. I am going to offset it with some black. I do have to have some stitching on this layout because that is one of the things in the recipe besides the stamping. Now I can't even remember what the third thing was. Stamping, stitching, and texture. So I'm going to use this ribbon as my texture, and I am going to do some stitching, although I'm not going to stitch on the ribbon. I'm just going to stitch around the outside of the layout, and I know that might be a little bit of a cop-out, but I figured if I stitched on top of the ribbon, you're not going to see it anyway, because I would probably do it in black. I suppose I could have done it in white, but I would have just probably done it in black and you wouldn't have been able to see it. So I am going to do a black stitch all the way around the outside. I did consider doing the stitching, I promise. I was going to do the stitching, but what happened over the top of the ribbon, but I ended up gluing it down just with my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, which works wonderfully and would be what I would normally stitch over on paper. But then I wasn't sure if the foot of my sewing machine would get caught on the ribbon and try to move it and create a mess. So I was like, I don't want to chance it. I've done all this work on this layout and it's so pretty. I don't want to make a mistake and mess it up. So I'm also playing along with the Iron Crafter Challenge, which I mentioned at the beginning of the video. This month I chose to use the buttons out of the options of eyelets, brads, or buttons. I probably could have used all of those, I don't know. But I don't go to buttons very often. They're kind of, I don't know, they're just not first on my list. But I thought they'd look really cute as the center of some of these florals. And so I decided to go through my really bright jar of buttons. No, the jar's not bright, the buttons are bright. And pull out a few of those. I'm also using some embroidery floss to tie in the center of the buttons. It's a 6-strand embroidery floss, but I am peeling it in half, so it's going to have 3 strands, so it's not quite so bulky. I find that with a flat-backed button, that 6th strand can make it a little wonky underneath to sit. And the 3 strands adds just that little pop of black that I want, so that's what I'm going to do. And here I am with my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, adding it to my ribbon, and oddly enough, this ribbon was just barely long enough to hit the 24-inch mark, so I can have a piece at the top and a piece at the bottom, because I don't have a whole lot of black ribbon like this in my stash. So I thought this was the perfect piece for this layout, and thankfully it was just the right amount. Once that dries a bit, then I will go ahead and trim it off, and then I will glue the other half to the top. I'm just giving it a chance to dry so that I don't wiggle it around and have it kind of wonky on the right hand side where I've gone to cut it. I think that'll hold a little bit better as well, and save me a hassle later of trying to get it straightened out again. I'm just using glue dots to hold down the buttons. Those seem to work the best. And I think these are either medium or large size. I'm not 100% sure. I keep them in the mini, the bling size, and in kind of a medium to large size, because I use them a lot on acrylic pieces, which you really need the tiny ones for. But every once in a while I'll need a large one for this purpose, and I think it's just great to have them on hand. So adhering down this top little strip of paper, and then I'm going to add my other little glue line here so I can add the other piece of ribbon. And look there, you guys, it's just barely long enough to fit. I couldn't be happier that it was enough. I was very surprised, in fact. I did actually back my photo with some black paper just to give it a little bold pop, as you can see there, and I'm really happy with that. I'm not really sure what's going on with my camera. It's a little tilted there. Apologize for that, and you can see the ground. But my desk is constantly evolving as it has changed locations. No longer in front of my scrap box or dream box or whatever they're calling it, crate box. Mine is one of the early ones, so it's definitely not a dream box, but same company. Anyway, I now have like a desk that is just shy of 5 feet maybe, and it's like a sit-stand desk, so all my lighting has had to change and get mounted to my desk instead of where it was. So I'm still playing around with that. I'm not super happy with all the shadows that it creates on my glass mat there. But it is what it is, and I'm constantly moving things around and trying to figure out the best solution for your viewing pleasure. I know that sounds so weird, but even me watching it back, I don't find it as great as I want it to be. So I just added a title there from Colorcast Designs using some tiny glue dots on the awaits portion and then some liquid glue for the colored letters. And that is it, you guys. Thanks so much for watching. Check all of the links down below. There will be a playlist for Iron Crafter, a playlist for Mixed Media Mayhem, and a playlist for Off the Board, so you can go and check all of those out, as well as the Facebook page for Mixed Media Mayhem, so that you can play along if you'd like. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will be back soon with another video, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.